Hello. I want to ask some questions about baby formula.
Yes.
And about the nano-hydroxyapatite that I understand there has been found in baby formula in some circumstances. Is it correct that until May 2017 you had a page on your website that stated that nano-hydroxyapatite was not permitted in baby formula?
Mark Booth, Chief Executive Officer for Food Standards Australia and New Zealand. Senator, there's quite a long story in terms of hydroxyapatite within
if you
there.
could say it as quickly
Essentially,
as possible,
there was
5 minutes.
essentially, we did initially put out advice that that was not permitted under the Food Standards Code. However, we very, very quickly realised after doing some further checks with the Codex chemicals area that there are a number of similes for that particular chemical, or a number of names that are, it's used by a number of different names.
Right.
And we very quickly realised that the name hydroxyapatite was a synonym for other chemicals which were permitted. So it was actually permitted. So it was a slight error on our part to actually say that initially it wasn't. All the time it was.
Now it is, okay.
Well,
So
not now, it always has been.
right, because there are the other chemicals,
yes.
the same chemical that were permitted.
Yes, exactly. It was a synonym, so it was just a human error.
Right, okay. So you've reversed what was on the website.
Yes, we just corrected that one.
Okay. And is it your view now, related to that substances that haven't been intentionally added to baby formula aren't subject to the provisions of 2.9.1 of the Food Code?
In terms of... So can I just get this correct? You're saying...
That if there's a chemical that happens to be there, it hasn't been intentionally added, that it's not subject to the provisions of 2.9.1 of the Food Code.
I'll ask my colleague Dr. Criar to comment in a second, but essentially where we were going with this was that there were some claims that there were hydroxyapatite was deliberately added. There was no real substantive evidence to actually say that that was the case. Also, the other issue is that that is a naturally occurring compound within infant formula, so you would expect to find it there anyway. So on that basis, and that was the basis that we provided our advice, that there were no issues around this and that baby formula was safe to use.
So because it was...
It's a naturally occurring...
occurring, infant formula isn't a natural product.
No, it's not, but the actual compounds within it, at the nano level, in terms of the milk, and has naturally occurring nanoparticles within it, so it can occur naturally within the production
so it wasn't
process.
intentionally added, so that you were saying that it's then not subject to the provisions
well,
of
there was nothing to actually investigate, as it were, because... it wasn't intentionally added.
But it wasn't naturally added, is what you're saying.
Yeah, that's right, that's correct.
That's right, and so therefore isn't subject to the provisions of 2.9.1 of the Food Code. Yes?
Yes.
Yep. And was this view based on legal advice to this effect?
The view...
That it's not subject to the provisions of 2.9.1 of the Food Code.
That was Fazan's opinion in terms of the work that we undertook.
So was it based on legal advice?
I don't think we would not normally get formal legal advice on an issue like that. This is a technical, scientific issue, and we base our work on the science and the weight of evidence. And in this case, it was very, very clear that the weight of evidence was in line with the proposals that we were doing. So we wouldn't get legal. You didn't get legal advice, but you had technical and scientific advice. Absolutely. I mean, Fazan's is a technical, scientific organisation.
And is that technical and scientific advice, is that on the public record?
Certainly, we have put up on our website a number of different responses to the issue around nanoparticles generally. We also did a couple of reports. I think there was one in 2014 and 2016 on nanotechnology.
I'm not aware of what exactly is on the website, but
Sure.
if there is technical or scientific advice that's not on the website, would you be able to provide that on notice?
Absolutely.
Okay. And is it correct that the members of the Scientific Nanotechnology Advisory Group agreed that it couldn't be determined whether the nano-hydroxyapatite was intentionally added or not.
The members of the group had, there were 3 different meetings held, and overall the consensus was that infant formula was safe. There were various discussions, as there often are in these kind of advisory groups, about the weight of evidence and about what evidence came in and that kind of work. But overall, the consensus was that
it was safe.
It was safe, and it was agreed.
But is it true that they couldn't agree as to whether the?
No, I don't think it's fair to say that, Senator. I think there was agreement. You've got to remember that there are a number of different meetings held, and they came to their opinions, gave us their advice, which, as I say, in general, was concurred with our advice, and we use that as one input into our decision-making process.
Right.
Senator Rice, just conscious of time.
Yep. The issue as to whether it was intentionally added or not. So basically what you're saying is that in order to not be subject to the provisions of the Food Code, something has got to be intentionally added. If it's seen to be natural, that it's not then subject to the provisions of 2.9.1 of the Food Code.
I think in general, food has a history of safe use. We look at food where there is something new happening within the food code. So if there is a intentionally added new nanoparticle in any food, then that would come through to us.
But if it's not intentionally added,
well,
then
if it's not intentionally added,
assess it.
No, it wouldn't come to us.
And if I could add, Senator Scott Creer, General Manager, Science and Risk Assessment, I think the point around, the fact that nanoparticles were detected does not in and of itself mean that there's a safety concern. And I think the issue with nanoparticles is if they confer some sort of technological function that we think is novel, then we will look at them. On this occasion, we did not believe there was a food and safety risk in the infant formula products by virtue of the presence of naturally occurring nanomaterials. In other words, we do not believe it was engineered through nanotechnology, and it did not confer any novel properties, and therefore we did not consider it unsafe.
And so therefore you consider it to be safe?
That's right.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.